Tyler tried listing my $4.6 million land using an expired power of attorney, but the county alerted the real owner. The county notice came on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday is the day I drive into town for the feed store, and the mail had been sitting in the box since Monday afternoon. I had let it sit. There was nothing in my life that needed to be answered before lunch. It was a plain envelope. Albemarle County return address. The kind of letter you get about reassessments or a road project or a tax adjustment. I opened it standing at the counter with my coffee in the other hand, and I read it twice before I set the cup down. The letter was a courtesy notification. A title search had been opened on parcel number. I will not give you the parcel number, but you would know the road if you drove it. And as the owner of record, I was being informed. The firm that had requested the search was a regional real estate company out of Charlottesville. The search had been opened in connection with a listing agreement. A listing agreement. I read that line 3 times. I am not a man who confuses easily. But I sat with that line for a while because the math did not work. I had not signed any listing agreement. I had not spoken to a real estate firm. I had not, in 39 years, ever once entertained an offer on that land, and the people who knew me knew that, and the people who did not know me had no business opening a title search on my property. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where Helen used to set out the seed catalogs in February so we could plan what would go in the kitchen garden. The same table where I had signed every important document of my adult life, the deed in 1987, the mortgage payoff in 1994, Helen's living will in 2018, the new will I rewrote 3 months after she passed. I sat there a long time, and then I got up and went to the closet in the back bedroom, and I took down the leather case, and I brought it to the kitchen table, and I unrolled the 1962 survey across the wood. I did not need to look at it. I have known that map since I was a boy. My father handed me that case in 1987 when he signed the deed over, and he said, "This is the original. Do not lose it." He did not say, "Keep it safe." He said, "Do not lose it." There is a difference, and a man of his generation knew the difference. The paper is the color of weak tea now. The pencil lines have not faded. The surveyor's name was Marshall Pettit, and he signed his work in the lower right corner with a small flourish on the M. He set 7 corner pins. 6 of them are still where he put them. The 7th I reset myself in 1991 after a logging crew clipped it with a skidder. I sat with that map for a while. I did not unroll it to verify anything. I have not needed to verify anything about that land in my lifetime. I unrolled it because handling a thing is how I think. Some men pace. I unroll the map. That was the first time I knew they had stopped seeing me. I will tell you about Tyler now, because you will want to understand him before I tell you what he did. Tyler is my daughter Margaret's only son. Margaret is a good woman. She is a teacher, and she has been a teacher for 31 years, and she has never asked me for a thing she did not need, which is more than I can say for most of the people I have known in my life. Tyler is her son, and Helen and I helped raise him in the summers, when Margaret and her husband were both teaching summer school to make ends meet. He stayed with us 6 weeks every July and August from the time he was 8 until he was 15. He learned to drive a tractor on that Albemarle land. He learned to set a fence post. He cried the first time I let him use a real chainsaw because he thought he had ruined the cut, and I told him, "No, son, the cut is fine," and he stopped crying. I want you to know that. I want you to know that I loved him then, and I love him now, and that nothing in the next 40 minutes of this story changes either of those facts. But love does not pay attention for you. Love does not protect a deed. Love does not read a sunset clause. Love is the reason you give a young man a power of attorney in 2017 when your wife is sick, and you need to take her to a clinic in Houston for 6 weeks of treatment, and you do not want the property tax filings to fall through the cracks while you are gone. Love is the reason. And love is also the reason it does not occur to you, when you sign the document, that you will need to remember it 5 years later, when the man you loved as a boy has become a man you do not entirely recognize. The 2017 document was a limited durable power of attorney. My attorney drew it up. He is the same attorney my father used. His son runs the practice now, but the office is in the same building on Court Square in Charlottesville, and the desks are the same desks, and the carpet has been replaced once, but it is the same color. I trust that office the way I trust the post office. They have never made an error that affected me. The document gave Tyler authority to handle two things, and two things only: property tax filings on the Albemarle tract and insurance renewals on the same. Nothing else. Not the deed, not the title, not any sale, lease, or transfer. The document had a sunset clause. It expired on December 31st, 2020. My attorney put that clause in because I asked him to. I did not want a piece of paper floating around with my signature on it that would outlive its purpose. We came home from Houston in October of 2018. Helen was tired, but she had a good winter that year. She passed in March of 2024, which is its own story, and not the story I am telling tonight. The 2017 document expired on the last day of 2020, and I did not think about it again, because there was nothing left to think about. The clause was the clause. The paper was a dead paper. The attorney had a copy. I had a copy. Tyler had a copy. That is the part that matters. Tyler had a copy. In February of this year, Tyler walked into the offices of a regional real estate firm I will call Ridgeline, because that is not the name. He sat down with an agent. He said he was acting on behalf of his grandfather. He produced a power of attorney dated October 12, 2017. The agent looked at the document. The agent saw a notarized seal, an attorney's signature, my signature, and a list of authorized actions. The agent did not look at the sunset clause, or the agent looked at it and did not understand it, or the agent saw it and decided it was not their job to verify it. I do not know which of those three things happened, and I do not particularly care because the result was the same. Tyler signed a listing agreement on a 340-acre tract assessed at $4,600,000, and the firm accepted it. The listing did not go public. It was set up as a quiet listing first, one of those arrangements where a firm shops the property to a short list of buyers before it hits the open market. I learned this later, from the firm's own records, which I requested in writing. The listing was set to go live in March. The title search was opened in February as part of the preparation. That is what triggered the county notice. That is how I found out. I want to slow down here, because I think this is the part people get wrong when they tell stories like this one. They think the moment of finding out is the moment of explosion. It is not. The moment of finding out is the moment of going very quiet. I have been quiet my whole life, and I got quieter that afternoon than I had been in a long time. I did not call Tyler. I did not call Margaret. I did not call my attorney that day either, because I wanted to spend the evening with the survey on the table and a cup of coffee, and the question of what I already knew before the letter came. Because here is the thing. I had known. I had not put the pieces together, but I had the pieces. I had been collecting them for 2 years. The first piece was a Sunday dinner at Margaret's house in the spring before last. Tyler was there with his wife. The grandchildren were running through the yard. We had ham and biscuits and the green beans Margaret puts up in mason jars every September. After dinner, Tyler asked me, in the tone of a man who has been thinking about a question for a while, whether the Albemarle land was doing anything for me financially. I remember the phrase exactly, doing anything. Like a piece of land is supposed to perform. I told him the land was doing exactly what I intended. He looked at his wife. She looked at her plate. He said something about how sitting on it might not be the best use, and the word he used was asset, which is not a word I use about that ground. I said the land was not an asset. I said it was a place. He let it go. He was not stupid enough to push it at his mother's table, but he had said it, and I had heard it, and I did not forget. The old file was not forgotten. It was waiting. The second piece came last fall. My property insurance carrier called me on a Thursday afternoon. The agent was a woman I had known for years. She called to confirm a policy update request on the Albemarle tract. I had not made any policy update request. I sat with the phone for a moment and I asked her who had requested it. She said the request had come in through their online portal under my account. I asked her to hold all changes pending my written authorization. I told her not to process anything. Then I called my regular agent and I told him to flag the account and to require my voice on the phone for any change going forward. He did that. I have a confirmation letter in the same drawer where I keep the deed. I did not call Tyler. I did not accuse anyone. The login credentials for that portal had been written down in 2017 because Tyler had needed them to renew the policy that summer. The credentials should have been changed in 2021 when the power of attorney expired. They were not. That was my oversight, not his crime. But I noted who had the keys. The third piece came 2 weeks before the county letter. My neighbor on the south fence, a man named Earl, who has leased grazing rights on a 60-acre portion of the tract for 11 years, called me on a Saturday morning. He said a man had been driving the fence line slowly in a pickup truck. He said the truck had a real estate company sign in the bed, propped up against the cab. He described the truck. White Ford, dent on the rear quarter panel, Virginia tags, a small dog visible in the passenger seat from a distance. Earl said the truck had stopped twice, and the man had gotten out and walked the fence with what looked like a clipboard. I knew the truck. The dog was a brown and white spaniel named Biscuit. The truck belonged to a real estate agent in Charlottesville, whose card I had thrown away 3 years earlier when he sent me an unsolicited letter asking if I would entertain an offer on the property. I thanked Earl. I asked him to call me if he saw the truck again. I did not tell him why. Earl is not a man who needs a reason. He has leased that pasture for 11 years, and he has never once been late with a check or short on account. He runs about 30 head on the South 60 in the warm months. He puts them up on his own ground in the winter. He and I have an arrangement that was made on a handshake in 2014 and has never required a piece of paper. That is the kind of man he is. He called me because he saw something on land he treats as if it were his own, and he wanted me to know. I hung up and I stood in the kitchen for a while and I looked at the calendar on the refrigerator. February. The grass was still flat from winter. Earl said the man had walked all the way to the creek. Walked it slow, stopped twice, wrote things on the clipboard. The brown and white spaniel had been in the cab the whole time, watching out the windshield, the way a dog watches when it is bored and waiting on its person. I knew then. I did not know in the legal sense. I did not have the listing agreement in my hand. But I knew. A man who has lived 78 years on land like that knows when something is wrong on it, the way a horse knows when a storm is coming. The body tells you before the weather does. I still did not call Tyler. I will tell you why, because I think this is the part that matters most. I did not call him because I did not want to give him a chance to lie to me. Once a man tells you a lie about a thing, the lie sits between you forever, even if he takes it back, even if you forgive him. The lie is a stone in the road, and you cannot ever put it back where it came from. I did not want a stone in the road between me and my grandson. I wanted to know what he had done before I gave him the chance to tell me he had not done it. So I waited. I waited 2 weeks, and the county letter came. That is when I unrolled the survey. That is when I sat at the table with the coffee and the map and the lamp on, until the lamp was the only light in the kitchen, and the rest of the house had gone dark around me. They thought I moved slowly because I was weak. I moved slowly because I was careful. The next morning, I drove to Charlottesville. I was at my attorney's office at 9. I had called the night before and left a message saying I would need an hour of his time. The receptionist greeted me by name. She always does. Her mother and Helen used to be in the same garden club. I went into the office. I set the leather case on the desk. I did not open it. I set the county letter on top of the case. I told the attorney what I knew and how I had come to know it. He listened without writing anything down for the first 10 minutes, which is how he listens when he wants to remember the order of things. Then he picked up a pen. He pulled the 2017 file. He had a copy in the cabinet behind his desk, in the same drawer where he keeps every file from every matter he and his father ever handled for me. He opened it on the desk between us. He turned to the third page. He pointed to the sunset clause with the back of his pen. He said, "This expired on December 31st, 2020. I said, "I know." He said, "Has anyone been operating under it since?" I said, "I think we are about to find out." He sat back in his chair. He looked at me for a moment over the top of his reading glasses. He has a way of looking at you that is the same way his father had. It is not a look that asks you to confirm anything. It is a look that says he has already understood and is giving you a moment to catch up to him out of courtesy. I had caught up to him already. We sat in the courtesy together for a few seconds. He smiled then, a small dry smile, and he said, "Walter, I have known you a long time. Tell me what you want." I told him what I wanted. I wanted three things. I wanted a certified letter to the real estate firm with the 2017 power of attorney attached, the sunset clause highlighted, a copy of the relevant Virginia code, and a notice that the listing was void as a matter of law and was to be canceled within 72 hours. I wanted a cease and desist letter to Tyler on his firm's letterhead, requiring him to refrain from any further action regarding the Albemarle property and to acknowledge in writing that he was no longer in possession of any current authority over it. And I wanted a written statement from the real estate firm acknowledging the cancellation and confirming that no further marketing of the property had occurred or would occur. He wrote it all down. He read it back to me. I said yes. He said it would be in the mail by end of day. I said good. I picked up the leather case. I did not open it in his office. I never did. I carried it back to the truck. That was on a Wednesday. On Thursday, the real estate firm received the certified letter. I know because the tracking confirmation came through that afternoon. The firm called my attorney within 2 hours. They were apologetic. They were professional. The agent who had taken the listing had been with the firm less than a year. The principal broker himself got on the phone. He said the listing was being canceled that afternoon. He said the title search would be withdrawn. He said there had been no marketing of the property to any buyer. He said all materials would be destroyed and a written confirmation would follow. My attorney told him that was acceptable. On Friday, the cease and desist letter was hand-delivered to Tyler's office. He works in commercial real estate himself in a different firm in Richmond. The irony is not lost on me. I do not think the irony was lost on him either. On Saturday afternoon, the real estate agent who had taken the listing called Tyler to tell him the listing had been pulled. Tyler called me at 4:15 in the afternoon. I was in the workshop. I had the survey unrolled on the bench under the good lamp because I was thinking about something on it that had been bothering me. A stretch of fence near the creek where the line on the map and the line on the ground had drifted a few feet apart over the years, and I wanted to figure out which one was right. I had a pencil in my hand. I had a steel rule. I had a cup of coffee that had gone lukewarm an hour before. The radio was on low, the AM station out of Charlottesville that plays the old country that they do not play on the new stations, the kind my father used to listen to in the truck on the way to the feed store. The phone rang. I looked at it. I knew the number. I let it ring. He called back at 4:30. I let it ring again. He called Margaret at 5. Margaret called me at 5:12. She was crying. She said, "Daddy, what is going on with Tyler? He is asking me what you have done." I said, "Margaret, I have not done anything to your son. He has done something to me. I will tell you about it tomorrow. Get some sleep." She said, "Daddy." I said, "Margaret, I love you. I am not angry. I am just tired. Tomorrow." She let me go. I did not answer Tyler that day. I did not answer him the next day either. I let 3 days go by. I am not proud of that part, and I am not ashamed of it either. A man is allowed to take 3 days to decide what he wants to say to a grandson who tried to sell his land out from under him. On Tuesday, I called him. I said, "Tyler, come to the house Saturday. Come alone." He said, "Granddad." I said, "Saturday." He said, "Yes, sir." That was the most respectful thing he had said to me in 2 years, and I noted it, and I did not say anything else. He came on Saturday. He drove up at 11 in the morning. I was on the porch. I had the leather case beside me on the bench. The 2017 power of attorney was inside the case, on top of the survey, with the sunset clause marked with a green sticky tab. I had also put the certified letter from the real estate firm in there, and the written confirmation of cancellation, and a copy of the cease and desist, and the letter from the county that had started all of it. The case was full. The case is normally not full. That is what I wanted him to see. I had set out 2 coffee cups on the porch. One for him, one for me. I had not poured the coffee yet. I wanted to see if he would ask for it. He did not ask. He sat down across from me, and the cups stayed empty between us, and after a while I noticed that he had noticed them, and that the empty cups were saying something I had not planned for them to say. I did not pour. He did not ask. The cups sat there the whole conversation. He sat down across from me on the porch. He did not say anything for a long time. Tyler has always been a talker, and the silence cost him. He looked at the case. He looked at the floor. He looked out at the yard, where the dogwood was just beginning to think about blooming. He said, "Granddad, I owe you an explanation." I said, "No." He looked at me. I said, "You owe me an apology. The explanation is not for me. The explanation is for you. You will need to know the rest of your life why you did what you did. I do not need to know." He started to cry. I am not telling you that to make him sound weak. He is not weak. He is a grown man with a wife and 2 children and a job he is good at. He started to cry because he understood, finally, that I had seen him. Not the boy on the tractor. Him. The man he had become when I was not looking. I let him cry. I did not reach across the bench. I am of a generation that does not reach across benches, and he is of a generation that does not expect us to. We sat with that. After a while he said, "I thought you were going to lose the land anyway. I thought the taxes were going to take it. I thought I could get ahead of it for you." I said, "Tyler, the taxes are paid. The taxes have been paid every year since my father bought the first 80 acres in 1958. I have never been late. You handled the filings yourself in 2018 and 2019 and 2020. You know this." He said, "I thought after Helen." I said, "Stop." He stopped. I said, "Do not put this on her. She is not here to defend herself, and she would not have wanted you to use her as a reason. She loved you. She would not want her name in this room right now." He nodded. I said, "What you did was not for me. You can sit with that, or you can lie to yourself about it. That is your business. But you will not lie to me about it on this porch." He nodded again. I opened the leather case. I took out the survey first, not the legal documents. The survey. I unrolled it on the bench between us, and I weighed the corners with 2 stones I keep on the porch for that purpose. I pointed to the lower right corner where Marshall Pettit had signed his name in 1962. I said, "Do you know who that is?" He said, "No, sir." I said, "That was the surveyor. He was a friend of my father's. He did this work in 1962 in exchange for a side of beef and a promise. The promise was that the land would not be sold in our lifetime. My father kept that promise. I have kept that promise. Your mother will keep that promise. After that, it is not up to me." He looked at the map. I said, "I have walked every line on this map. I know where every pin is. I reset one of them myself in 1991. The 7th one, near the creek. The skidder hit it. I drove the new one in by hand. I was 43 years old. I remember the day. There was a thunderstorm coming and I wanted to finish before it hit. I finished. The pin is still where I put it." He was quiet. I said, When you signed that listing agreement in February, you did not know any of that. You did not know about Marshall Pettit. You did not know about the side of beef. You did not know about the pin near the creek. You knew the assessed value. You knew the acreage. You knew there was a power of attorney in your filing cabinet that had my signature on it. That is what you knew, and that is what you used. He said, "Granddad, I said, "Tyler, the document you used expired on December 31st, 2020. My attorney drew it that way on purpose. I asked him to. I did not want a piece of paper with my signature on it floating around forever. I told him, put a sunset clause on it. He did. He told you about it in October of 2017 when he handed you your copy. You signed an acknowledgement that you understood the terms. That acknowledgement is in the file." He put his face in his hands. I said, "I am not going to take you to court. I am not going to disinherit you. I am not going to call your mother and ruin her week. The real estate firm has been notified. The listing has been canceled. The cease and desist is in your office. That is the extent of the legal action against you, and it is enough. The rest is between us, and the rest is not for the law." He looked up. I said, "The land will go to your mother when I am gone. It will go to you and your sister when she is gone. By that time, you will be old enough to understand what you almost did. I hope you will be. If you are not, the trust will protect it from you, because I changed the trust in March, after I learned what you did. The trust now requires unanimous consent from 3 trustees for any sale. You will not be one of the trustees. Your mother will. Your sister will. My attorney will. That is how the land will be protected after I am gone, and that is the last conversation we will have about the land." He said, "Granddad." I said, "I am not finished." He waited. I said, "I love you. I have loved you since you were 8 years old, and you cried over the chainsaw cut. I will love you when you are 60. None of that is in question. What is in question is whether you and I will sit on this porch again. That is up to you. You will write your mother a letter this week. You will tell her what you did. You will not soften it. You will not explain it. You will tell her plainly. She deserves to hear it from you and not from me. After that, you and I will see each other at Thanksgiving, like we always have. We will not talk about this. We will eat the turkey. You will sit at the end of the table where you have always sat. Your children will run in the yard. We will be a family. But we will not be the same family. You took something from that. You will sit with what you took." He said, "Yes, sir." I rolled up the survey. I put it back in the case. I closed the case. I said, "Go home to your wife. Drive safe." He stood up. He stood there for a moment. Then he walked down the porch steps and got in his truck and drove down the gravel road, and the dust hung in the air a long time after the truck was gone, the way it does in early spring before the rains come. I sat on the porch with the case beside me. The sun moved. The shadow of the dogwood moved across the yard. I did not move for a while. Some lessons take a lifetime to learn and one document to teach. I want to tell you about Helen now, because I have not told you yet, and I do not want this story to end without her in it. The last long drive Helen and I took before her illness made travel hard was on the Albemarle land. It was a late October afternoon. The leaves were past peak, but they had not all fallen. The light was the kind of light you get in Virginia in late October that nobody who has not lived through it can quite describe to you. Slanted, gold, a little sad. We did not have a destination. I drove the perimeter road slowly. We had the windows down even though it was cool. Helen had a sweater on. Her hair was still her own then. She had her hand on my knee, the way she had since 1971. She said, "Walter, promise me you will keep it." I did not answer with words. I just kept driving. I drove the whole perimeter, 6.5 miles. I drove past the creek and past the upper pasture and past the old logging road and past the corner where Marshall Pettit's 7th pin is, and I drove back to the house. I parked. I turned off the engine. I sat with my hand over hers. She knew. She did not need me to say it. She has not needed me to say it since. We sat in the truck for a while after that. The engine ticked as it cooled. A wren came down out of the cedar tree by the fence and worked its way along the post tops, the way a wren does, hopping and stopping and tilting its head. Helen watched it. She did not say anything. I did not say anything. The wren went back into the cedar. Helen squeezed my hand once. That was the whole conversation. That was enough. I did not need to say it on the porch with Tyler either. I did not need to invoke her name. The land is the answer. The land has always been the answer. I will keep it because she asked me to keep it, and because my father asked me to keep it, and because Marshall Pettit drew it in pencil in 1962 in exchange for a side of beef and a promise. Tyler will understand that someday. He may not understand it on the drive home. He may not understand it this year. He may not understand it until his own grandson is old enough to walk a fence line. That is fine. The understanding is not on my schedule. I walked back into the house that evening. I put the leather case in the closet in the back bedroom. I put the kettle on. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, which is what I drink in the evening now since the doctor told me to ease off the coffee after 4. The county letter was still on the table. I had not put it away. I read it one more time. Owner of record. That is what it called me. Owner of record. 3 words. The whole story is in those 3 words, if you have the patience to sit with them. I am the owner of record. My father was the owner of record before me. My grandfather bought the first 80 acres in 1958 from a man named Hollis Cabell, whose family had owned it since before the Civil War. The land has changed hands 4 times in 170 years. 4 times. That is not a transaction. That is a procession. Tyler tried to make it a transaction. He failed. The paper he held was a dead paper. The clause was a clause. The county knew who to call. I want to say one more thing, because I have heard from many of you over the years, and I know some of you are sitting with stories like this one in your own families. I know some of you have a grandson or a son or a daughter who has started to look at you like a problem to be solved. I know some of you have been told you are slow. I know some of you have had your tools moved. I know some of you have had a pen pushed across a kitchen table toward you with a smile that did not reach the eyes of the person holding it. I want to tell you what I told my attorney that morning in his office when he asked me what I wanted. I wanted 3 things. But underneath the 3 things was one thing. I wanted to be visible. I wanted the people who had stopped seeing me to see me again. Not because I needed their attention, because the land needed it. The deed needed it. Marshall Pettit's pencil lines needed it. Helen's hand on my knee on a perimeter road in October needed it. You do not get visible by yelling. You get visible by being right, slowly, with the paperwork in order, and with the people on your side who have been on your side for 50 years. The deed had been in that drawer since 1987. It was still there. The trust was rewritten in March. The case is back in the closet. The survey is back in the case. The pin near the creek is still where I put it in 1991. The taxes are paid. The insurance is current. The login on the portal has been changed. The credentials are written down in a place that is not the kitchen drawer where they used to be. The land is doing exactly what I intended. I will see Tyler at Thanksgiving. He will sit at the end of the table. His children will run in the yard. We will eat turkey and the green beans Margaret puts up in mason jars every September. He will write his mother a letter this week because I told him to, and because he will, because he is not, in the end, a bad man. He is a man who got ahead of himself. There is a difference, even if the law does not always make one. I am not going to forgive him on this porch tonight. I am not going to refuse to forgive him either. Forgiveness is not a thing you announce. It is a thing that happens slowly, the way the dogwood blooms. Some years it blooms early, some years late. You do not push it. You let it do what it is going to do. What I will not do is let myself be erased. That is the part I want you to hear, if you hear nothing else. I am 78 years old. I have been the owner of record on that land for 39 years. I will be the owner of record until the day I am not. And on that day the land will pass to my daughter, in a trust written by an attorney, whose father drew the original deed, and the trust will hold the line that my father held, and that my grandfather held, and that I am holding tonight. The slow ones are not the weak ones. We are the careful ones. We are the ones who put the pin back in the ground when the skidder hits it. We are the ones who keep the leather case in the back of the closet for 40 years and know what is in it without unrolling it. We are the ones who let the letter sit in the mailbox until Tuesday because there was nothing in our lives that needed to be answered before lunch. We are still here. And if stories like this remind you that quiet elders are not helpless, subscribe to my channel for more stories. Because sometimes the oldest person in the room remembers the most important truth. I will sit on this porch a while longer. The lamp inside is on. The kettle has gone cold. The case is in the closet. The survey is in the case. The pin is in the ground. The land is doing exactly what I intended. Good night.